Part 2, Chapter 4, Closure. I stood at a slant, hands in my pockets and my hood pulled over my head. It was a cold morning. Dew collected on the verdant grass and the bright blue sky overhead cast pleasant warmth on my shoulders. I peered through sleepless lids at the gray headstone, tracing over the etched letters of his name, contemplating the concept of his corpse beneath my feet. It was so surreal. Standing there with one part mourning the loss of my only direct family and another part relishing in the final chapter of his life. Despite his issues, he did care for me, and now I know how hard that must have truly been. When my mom died, he was left with a child he admitted to never wanting, in a place far from home and the knowledge of something unnatural. With the surmounting guilt of his transgressions paired with the heinous outcome, it was no wonder he constantly sought an escape. If I'm honest, if I had truly come home to find him dead by a self-inflicted gunshot wound, knowing what I know now, I would have understood. I sighed, my elbows digging into my side. I couldn't seem to warm up. Even though I was fully dressed in casual clothes and had layers on my torso, I just kept shivering, listening to the lively forest close by and wishing I could go for a walk alone. I raised my head and looked around. It was a small graveyard, only 15 or so minutes from my house, half occupied by stone and half by neat grass. As I droned side to side, lost in chaotic thought, my eyes landed on her shape off to the side. She saw me too, and her expression softened. I gave a frail smirk and let my lips separate, cycling air. I felt her approach as my head lowered to the stone again. Tansu reached my side and placed a hand on the center of my back, lightly rubbing. "How are you doing?" she asked. Her question entered my brain one letter at a time, shuffled, then broke apart. It was absorbed again and reassembled as she intended to be heard. My lips smacked. "You know, my mom didn't get a funeral. They never got around to buying plots, so when she died, the church and town hall put together a cremation fundraiser. My dad sent all the ashes back to her remaining family." She scratched my back slightly, leaning forward a little to see the side of my face as I spoke in slow drawls. My chest tightened, and I felt a flicker of pain in my skull. She noticed my wince, but I reset and shuffled my feet. I woke up that morning without a mom, and I never figured out how to properly cope with that. No closure, no straight answers, just heartbreak and misery. All the adults treated me like a lost puppy, and all my friends from school and daycare looked at me weirdly. All at once, every aspect of my life felt wrong. She spoke solemnly. "But the closure doesn't help. Not really." She looked at the headstone. "The loss remains." "Yeah," I sighed. Her hand dropped, and we stood side to side, reading the stone together. I could feel her discomfort deeper than pure observation. The little fidgets, a tilt in her belly, obfuscated frayed emotions writhing beneath the surface. I looked over at her, and she looked at me. Together, we resonated. "I'm so sorry," she choked, eyes watering. I felt my jaw tremble, flashes of his throat split open, and blood splashing my face and teeth stifled my breaths. That moment won't stop replaying. This breathing in my skull, slow and deliberate, muddled the sentiment I should be expressing. The demon was watching, evaluating, plotting, showing me this. I leaned into her and wrapped one arm around her shoulder for a side hug. She turned into me and latched on, sniffling and causing a few tears to escape my eyes. "You're not alone, Kimmy," I whimpered, fighting myself. "I know." The parking lot was in view, and I could see her mom over by the car, holding herself and clearly red in the face. Both of them radiated deep pain, some turmoil that inspired many thoughts in me. One stood out among all the others, one I hadn't given too much consideration to as of yet. "Where is her dad?" the demon chortled in my head. I nearly jumped at her voice, booming behind a whisper, distorted with a snippet of glee coiling malice. She knows my thoughts. I can feel her chewing. Tonto and I released, and she took a step back, cold again. The sound of birds chirping in distant traffic helped to ground me in this world, though it was difficult to stay focused on one set of senses. It's only been a couple of days, but since the night I took the deal, there have been oddities. Things similar to the days leading up, but now on overdrive. My ability to tune into conversations and subtle noises has expanded. I can hear things rustling in the leaves at night from inside the house. I can smell the gas-range stove of a neighbor's home from the living room. I can see shapes and outlines in the dark far better than I could ever before. And right now, I can see a faint blur around her head. It rippled and contracted as her expression shifted from sorrow to forced optimism. "Do you feel the insanity?" the demon taunted. "It waits for you." I pinched my eyes shut and let my body relax, doing my best to ignore her playful taunting. She constantly switches from a monotone drag to a sinisterly mocking, singing voice. She gets a kick out of playing up her demonic perception. Tansu clasped both hands at her waist and looked at the headstone. She eyed it carefully, no doubt scrutinizing the size and print. It was clear what she was thinking. I spoke. "I haven't said thank you yet for arranging all of this. So, thank you." She smiled. "It's not a big deal." "It is." I jammed my hands in my pockets and faced the headstone with her. "Ton, I've known you and your mom for less than a week at this point. You've done more for me than most people have in my lifetime. That's a big deal." She seemed to get embarrassed. "We believe in helping others in any way that we can. My dad taught me a lot about paying it forward and doing good for the sake of good." I scoffed with a grin. "Even for people you barely know?" "Especially for people we barely know. That's how love and trust are formed. And we all need those things." We shared another heartfelt glance. A warmness in my heart matched the sun on my shoulders, and I felt that poison smog within dissipate. "I appreciate you guys keeping it a private thing. I don't know how I would have handled a small gathering of people who don't know anything about us." "Only because you asked," she said kindly, then switched to compassion. "Would it have been so bad to let others pay their respects and give you the attention you deserve?" "What respects?" I scoffed. "Most people in this town hated him. All his buddies are just occasional labormen from neighboring towns. I could give less than a shit to see any of them. No-name assholes. The only person who probably would have shown up is Joey, and that would have been only to see me." She linked words together carefully. "You're already shutting him out again." I looked sharply at her, emotionless. She shied away from my eyes and latched onto her own 2 feet, clearly feeling like she overstepped. "No, not entirely," I said, slightly defensive. "I just can't handle all the love and support, as stupid as that sounds." "It doesn't sound stupid. I get it. But still, you should consider talking to him soon." "I know," I sighed. "I will. I just need some time to sort my head. I have no idea what I'm going to say to him." She pondered, leaving another long gap. "Does he know about what you told me?" I knew she was referring to my dad's abusive tendencies. "Some. He's witnessed my dad's dickheadishness firsthand, and he's smart enough to make assumptions. So I'm sure he's in a weird place as well." "You should call him then," she pleaded, "before he reaches double digits himself." I felt a knot of frustration rise up in my throat. "Ton, stop," I said stiffly. "I can't deal with that right now, okay?" The tight air in my lungs eased out, and I recalled my minor aggression. A sudden splash of red painted my imagination. At the center of it was Tansu's limp expression. Shock ran through my veins, and the sound of the demon chuckling echoed in the catacombs. I made a fist inside my pocket and shook my head. "Sorry." I said. Her hip moved to the side slightly, and she made an insecure pose. We both needed patience right now, for entirely different yet overlapping reasons. I know she's right. I can't just shut him out again and again, but I also can't deny the fear inside. My emotions right now are broken and easily twisted. The demon has her fingers wrapped around every one of my feelings, and at any moment, she could raise me up like a puppet on strings. I can't let her toy with me. I have to abstain from myself. I looked at her again and stole her attention. We both smiled, and I gestured toward her mom at the car. Go tell your mom I'm okay. I can feel her worrying from here. I chuckled. She nodded slightly, and without a word, started to walk back to the car. I watched her move slowly, the tight-fitting black dress reaching her ankles where long white socks and dress shoes completed the outfit. Her mom was the same, nicely dressed in black since early this morning. It's almost noon. The dirt is freshly piled, and the earth has been fed another. I don't know what tomorrow holds for me. I cannot fathom how this demon will affect the rest of my life. But I do know one thing. My father was a part of this. He knew about demons and the old man, and his actions were the catalyst for a mystery I now have to solve. Who is the old man? What are these demons he grants? And what exactly is my role in all of this?